Or do they not like to come see you?
I'm going to tell you that they like to come see us, surprisingly, you'd think, but the reality is that there's not a lot of fear of the dental tent. Many of the athletes actually come back year after year after year, so I may only see an athlete once a year, but they remember. And it's actually quite enjoyable, I think, for both of us. There is no active treatment going on, so there's no fear of that phase of things. And truthfully, today we're finding that the populations are much more amenable to dental care than ever before. I mean, there were generations where dentistry was not fun. But I think you'll find today that it actually is fun. We can make people very comfortable. In my office, I've got a massaging chair. We get headsets hooked up to Pandora radio, and people are like, they don't really want to leave, especially on a hot day. We're going to have to make reservations for the rooms.
Yeah. Oh, how did you get started volunteering?
For this particular area, it was solely because of Dr. Zablotsky, who's my best friend, and he needed some help. He had volunteer dentists come in to do these screenings, and he asked if I would help him out one year, and I said, of course. And then things started to snowball from there. A couple of years where Nevin had to be at a wedding or some of the other volunteer work that he does, and asked if I would just take care of things, and I was happy to do so. So it was more just the opportunity was presented to me, and was happy to oblige.
How many years have you been doing this?
Gosh, I'm fairly bad with time. Just the other day, I realized I'm going to be 57, and it just makes no sense to me as to how time can go by so quickly. In fact, I have a friend visiting from college. We played soccer together, and we're thinking, how many years? 30-something years? I said, it's nice not to feel that it's been that long. So I honestly don't know for sure, but it must be at least 8 or 10 years.
How do you see what you do as sort of making a difference for Special Olympics or for the kids that come through and see you?
That's a good question. Because sometimes you wonder, are you making a difference? And honestly, that was one of my concerns as I started to volunteer for this. To say, all right, what are we really doing here that is making a difference? Because all of us, I'm sure, want to make a difference in this world. I don't know, it's just something inside us that makes you feel good, to leave a legacy, do something good for the world, for the community. And Special Olympics is an amazing program, but it wasn't geared towards health. I mean, it started out, it was geared towards competition and bringing this group of athletes together and so forth. And then I see it's morphing to something very different, and what's the end goal, we're not quite sure yet, but there's all these health issues now involved with it, and so much can come from that. So much good can come from that, which is very exciting and very appealing to me. But honestly, the Special Olympics dental tent and dental screening, it was more of a data gathering. And I'm a data guy. I love data. But it's one thing to have data, and the next step is, okay, we have to analyze the data, and then the third step is we need to implement something from that data. And Special Olympics, for me at least, was we're doing really great at collecting the data, and then there's some analysis of that data, although we weren't really involved with that phase of things. And then there was that huge missing piece of, what are we doing now? Where are we really making a difference? So in Vermont being so small, and somewhat independent thinkers, and not necessarily caring as much about big conglomerations of telling us what we have to do and so forth, and we'll sneak around and go through the back door and do something if we think it's going to work and be right. We started to take that data ourselves and try and get to that third step of do something with it, make something positive happen here. Because here we're screening all these athletes, and we're finding some problems. And the data saying, you're doing great. I mean, we had 77 problems in 1997, and in 2007 you only had 27 problems. So you're making great progress. But we need to get those problems and get them taken care of. And that's where we found it was the missing link. So we started to take that upon ourselves. Because it's not the responsibility of Special Olympics, it wasn't part of their charge and so forth. I'm saying, all right, we're going to now keep a separate list of all these 27 athletes that might have immediate care problems, because we would inform the athlete, we might inform the coach. If the parent was there, that was the best thing to do, we'd inform the parent. But then it was gone. It was like off my hands, you know, we're moving on back to our regular lives and seeing our patient pool. We no longer do that. We now took it onto our own responsibility of saying, look, these 24 individuals need help. Where can we find them the help? So we would start to make phone calls. Dr. Zablotsky was key in this, to the individuals in that community, individual dentists, to say, we have an athlete, John Smith, he's a special athlete. He's got a big cavity on this tooth, he's in pain, or is going to be in pain. He needs the care. And we would now set that link up. So that was pretty exciting and pretty critical. But honestly, it's time consuming. You know, phone numbers aren't always right. Just because you made the phone call and set it up, it doesn't mean that it actually would then happen. So there's a lot of little steps that still needed some tweaking. But at least we were headed in that third pod, as I call it, of, you know, okay, that finalizes, it closes the loop on this Special Olympics, the data, to, we finally did something. Because even though we run the tents and so forth, we wouldn't necessarily leave there thinking, I did something. Did we do something? Did we change the world in any little way? Did we really make a difference? No. Collecting the data doesn't make a difference. You know? So making that link is exciting, and we're still working on it, because now we've gotten the Vermont State Dental Society involved. So rather than taking on as individuals, we said, you know what, this shouldn't really be our responsibility. What happens when we stop doing it, or are incapable of doing it, or aren't around, or don't have the time? This needs to be a process that continues and becomes an everyday, natural thing. So we've now got Vaughn Collins involved with the Vermont State Dental Society, saying, look, now we have this list of athletes, we have the addresses and so forth. Nevin and I happen to know, it's a small state, there's only 360 dentists in the whole state, and I've run continuing education for 20-something years, so I see almost every dentist in the state at a continuing education course. If I don't see them, then that's not a good thing. You know, dentists need to continue with continuing education, and most of the dentists in the state do. But, so we would have contacts in a lot of areas of the state. But reality is, we're still Chittenden County based. I have an office down in Barry, so I have some Washington County, I think it's Washington County, you know, individuals that we knew very well. So those athletes, that wasn't so difficult. But I don't know the dentists that well in Brattleboro and in those areas, and you know, these athletes are from all over. So now we've got that piece with the actual state society to say, look, you need to hook these people up and find them a dental home. And that's what Vermont does incredibly well. We find individuals dental homes. You know, getting some treatment is great, but finding you having a place to go for the rest of your life, that's really the ultimate goal. That's the final piece. And that's what Nevin and I are really trying to accomplish at this point in time. And then we took it a little step further, as we pushed the envelope just a little bit, and say, not all dentists are comfortable with this population. I mean, the reality is there's a lot of behavioral management that may have to go on with some of the athletes, and it's the same with all populations. But if you don't get exposed to this particular population, then you tend to do what you're comfortable with. And if you're uncomfortable, it's easy to say, I don't really want to do that. Let John down the road do that. Let's refer them somewhere else. Let them go somewhere else. And so we have now, in the past 2 years, got together. We're also teachers. Nevin's a teacher. I'm a teacher. You know, there's great joy in passing on some of your wisdom, knowledge, information, and so forth, at least to those that are interested in hearing that. And we run a lot of other little programs for dentistry in the state. And, my office has a summer intern program for college kids or even high school kids that are interested in dentistry. And they can do dental assisting with us for 2 or 3 months and really get into whether dentistry is what they want and hopefully someday actually come back. But I lost my train of thought, but anyway, so, oh yeah, so we decided, wouldn't it be cool to start introducing this population to actual dental students? We happen to have some connections at Harvard, at Tufts, at BU, dental schools. And so all of a sudden, we were able to contact the Vermont Student Dental Association at each of those schools. And there's always some very motivated and volunteer geared individual that runs those associations. And talk to them and say, hey, we have this really nice program up here where we're screening athletes for Special Olympics. How interested would you be in maybe joining us? And it just so happened that they were looking for an opportunity outside of Massachusetts. And so we got together with one of those individuals who networked with the other individuals, and all of a sudden we had 14 students that were coming up. This was sort of a last-minute thing, and out of the blue. Because normally we have volunteers